Okay guys, I'm back. Just test fitted the SS taillights on there and found out they didn't match real well, which is kind of discouraging, but you're going to have that in projects, and the biggest issue is just keep moving ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start disassembling this assembly. Uh, Basically trim it. Let's trim this whole bucket out of it, and I'm going to maintain the wiring harness, save it for the actual quad light on the inside, and continue onward. Worst case scenario, here in a couple weeks or maybe a month or so, whenever I get around to it, I'll just basically yank those other lights out and repaint them. I might actually do it before I get the panel for the quad light all wrapped up. Figure I'll try to finish it and get it all molded and get the trunk altered, because you do have to somewhat alter the trunk. This is actually a secondary trunk that I own. Basically, you got to cut that little knockout out on both sides, and then you're going to have to round out probably around these two holes here a little bit, because those are no longer there. Allow room for the new bucket to sit in there. I'll go over all that when I do it. But yeah, I figure I'm just going to leave the two lights on the car. That everything works properly. They're just not quite the right color. You'll have that. Anytime you're dealing with spray paint, you're not dealing with direct order color matching. You know what I mean? That's a downfall. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on this one here. I got to yank all these things out, get all them off. But some of them are a little easier than others with one hand. So I want to go ahead and get them all out. And I will get this bucket trimmed out. I'll probably trim the studs off it. I will eventually most likely put studs back on them. It kind of depends on how it sits again on the trunk. If the holes in the trunk got to be cut out where the original mounting tabs went, there's no point putting a mounting tab back. But I can always epoxy one of these onto a different location of the rear panel towards the outside corner somewhere. Basically over in this region, because these are the two posts that we removed off the factory quad light. So maybe I'll epoxy another one somewhere in the grand scheme of things right in this area. And that way it has a little mount. My other thought would be to maybe just put a little bit of silicone or an epoxy or something over in that general vicinity to help hold it in. So I want to go ahead and get to work on this thing. I will cut you back on here in a little bit. Okay guys, I got the first bucket cut out. That was actually quite a nightmare. This whole section here gets out in the way of getting around this back corner. I finally got frustrated with it. I cut from like here all the way around to about, I don't know, right in that area. And this whole corner was really sticking it to me. To the point that I actually tried to cut through the lens, which was having very little luck on that. It did shatter, which was nice. So now I got little pieces of red plastic all over the garage. And a couple other pieces I had to trim off just to get around the outside. But basically in the end, this is what it leaves you. This nice plastic bucket, which already has a reflector in it. And hopefully I will be able to clean this up. I've got to get this post bracket off. I'm also going to take that post off because I can't guarantee it's actually going to fit anything. And basically all I really wanted was this plastic bucket material. Like I said, I had ordered a couple bowls to do it. They're Cambrio, I don't know, they're called like pebbled salad bowls or something. I don't know. I read up on a build, and they turned out really good. But like I said, the company that I ordered them through, 3 different times, dropped the ball and delivered broken product. And mind you, it didn't have to be perfect, but the bowls actually on just about every time was broke basically right up along here, up through the center on a mold line. And that was just, kind of unusable to me. I could have epoxied them and whatnot. The bowls themselves weren't expensive. I think I paid $3 a piece for them. But they were $15 to ship them. And I figure if you're paying $15 to ship something in the continental United States, it should surely not show up broken. So I just opted out of doing that, and I think this is going to work out a little better at least. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing cleaned up, and I will cut you back on a little bit. Okay guys, as you can see, that's the remnants of the donor tail light. That I really don't need anything from there. This is the completed bull. It's not real round as you can see, but I don't think that will matter once we epoxy everything. There's your hole for your light. That is the stopper for the light, which is why I saved it. As you can see, I've took all the mounts off, and it still needs a lot of cleaning up, but that's where I'm going to stop cleaning this one up for the time being until I get the other full bucket cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that. Now before I start on the second light, I did notice something slightly strange to me at least. That's the first bucket. As you see, it's got a little bit of a texture to it. It's not really, I don't know, not super smooth at all in the least. But the other side, which is the actual passenger side bucket, that sure looks pretty drastically different in material at least, and really in size also. I don't know if maybe this light was a replacement, or perhaps the first one I disassembled was a replacement. But either way, there's definitely some differences. So I just figured I'd note that. I don't know that it will much matter in the end. It just kind of struck me as odd. So I'm going to get back to cutting this one over here. And I will cut you off when I got two of these basically. And we'll start looking into test fitting them in the quad light panel for the trunk. So, alright, see you guys in a little bit. Alright guys, there's my two buckets. You can see they're not perfectly round. That's just not something that's going to happen with the Dremel and cutting them out of the existing houses. They are going to be offset with the bulbs leaning towards the outside of the car, which is, at least from what I could see from the trunk deck, that's where, roughly where you want them at. They both still maintain the original reflectors, which is nice. Typically they use chrome spray paint. I was also thinking maybe like aluminum foil tape, like a duck wrap tape maybe. But this way here I won't have to work with that. I want to try to go ahead and get them fit, and I will show you what they look like set in place here in just a second. Okay guys, there's the bucket set, just kind of set in place. The more and more I look at it, I really do not think I'm going to be able to keep these reverse lights. I think had I gotten the buckets with the actual bowls, that would have allowed me to put the reverse light dead square in the center of the housing and leave it. And then I was going to offset the bulb, to the inside. That way it would light up around it. That being said, I don't know that I can trim these buckets enough to get that accomplished. So what I'm thinking is that I'm just going to trim them up. We'll take this reverse light here, and basically I'm just going to either paint that black on the inside, or I will put some kind of a block off plate or something in there to stop light from transferring through it. That way it still just illuminates a ring, which is what I was looking for. So I will keep twiddling away at these. If something changes and I can keep the reverse lights, I will definitely show you guys. But right now I want to continue on and keep working these things here down and trimming them until they fit appropriate. So I will cut you guys back on in just a little while. Okay guys, I got them all trimmed up. You can see now they're trimmed flat. As flat as I can get them at least. I got a couple little small gaps towards the center on both of them. There ain't a whole lot I can really do about it without making the lights even narrower. I don't know that will really alter anything to change it. Either way, I'm going to have to trim the trunk. That's just part of it. I have test fit about 100 different ways to get these reverse lights to stay. I do not believe that is going to happen. I was pretty set at doing it, and I'm pretty sure it's impossible right now without, I don't know, significantly better fabrication skills or altering the buckets to the point that it's just no longer feasible for me to use and do it the way I want. So I'm going to basically, what I believe I want to do is either cut something and fill these, or I might just paint them straight black. From the outside of the car, they'll still look pretty well white or opaque, even with black behind it. I actually tested it off screen with a little piece of this here stuck in place, and it didn't look terrible from behind. Not that I'm using the fleece for it, but just so that I could see black on white, basically. So that being said, these are most likely just going to go in the trash. It was worth a shot. I think, again, had I got the original bowls, I think I could have probably made that work. Really, the only way I could do it here is if maybe, I don't know, say if I took this and epoxied it to here and then added a tube all the way through it, and then maybe put the light, brake light, tail light, turn signal light over here. But by the time that's all said and done, I don't know that that's really something I would invest that kind of time into. So I want to leave it like this. Plan on deleting the reverse lights in that case. I will either relocate them in a future video, or I might not. I've actually got an idea of what I want to do with them. Whether or not I can find the pieces to do it is a different story. I won't say what that is now. I'll just leave that for a future video, just in case I get the opportunity to do it. It's not using the C5 Corvette trim that a lot of people put on the bumpers, which, I don't know, that's fine. It doesn't look terrible. I've never been a big fan of it. So I'll just leave it to that. At least it's not that. It'll be something different, something a little more unique if I can find the parts. That's the big if. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all cleaned up, and I will look into either blacking those out or putting an insert in of some sort. So I'll cut you back when that's all figured out. Alright guys, I've looked at this a couple different ways. I actually tried to paint it black with a brush, and I'm still getting light shining through it. It's kind of streaky light, but it's light nonetheless. I decided that I'm going to, well, originally I was going to spray paint them again. And I thought maybe that would take care of the issue I was having. And I decided, while looking for spray paint in my garage and in the basement, I came upon some Plasti Dip. And I started thinking, how did I not think this before? So I'm probably just going to Plasti Dip these black. All in all, they shouldn't look terrible. If you look at it from here, you can see it's black, but you can see light through it, definitely. But I figure the plastic dip will put a nice coat through there. I know you don't have to tape things off with plastic dip. I get it. I taped this off beforehand, back when I was considering paint. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray over it and yank the tape, and then I'll just, once everything sets up, I'll go around and just kind of razor cut around it and peel the little bits that are unnecessary off. So yeah, that's that. Still kind of bummed about the paint color. It really kind of aggravated me, but try not to let that ruin the entire project, because so far it's been pretty cool and pretty rewarding. So we will get these things a good couple coats of plastic coat, and or plastic dip rather, and I'll catch you guys back on. Okay guys, that's about 4 coats of plasti dip on both sides. I've kind of gone over it back and forth a couple different times. Finally got to a point where I feel comfortable with the lack of light coming through it. I was really surprised it took a lot of plasti dip. I'm assuming it's because of the texture here. If you see that texture right there, you really got to work to get it, like, coat it and down and through all that. This stuff's not quite dry yet. I'm probably going to let it sit overnight before I continue on. As you see here, it kind of came out past the lens. So once it sets up real good and gets a nice good dry on, I will use a little razor blade and just kind of perforate right there and see if I can't peel that little bit off. But aside from that, I'm overall pretty happy with the overall product. It's not ideal, but I think I can probably make that work. Also, while I was dealing with that in between coats and such, I got these, which are the factory pigtails for the stock tail lights. I went ahead and cut the connectors off because I'm not going to be using the connectors. And then right here, there's a resistor that tells the automated systems in the car about the tail light out. Pops up in your information display. Each one of these two that had the resistors on also had a secondary bulb, which is the typically the corner running light. And I didn't really need that, so I deleted them for this purpose. This is going to be your common. I believe the black was the brake light, and the brown is the running light. I've tested them. Everything lights up the way they should. So I did that with both pieces, both harnesses for these old tail lights. I will kind of go over that a little more when it comes time to actually make the harness up, but I just figured I'd show you what I was doing while I was killing time. Cut the little running lights out of them. Basically just snipped the wires, wrapped everything back up in plastic or vinyl tape, and I'm going to go from there. So, alright, I guess I want to let this thing go for the evening. I will see you guys probably tomorrow sometime.